The franchise of Mass Effect is named after the phenomena that revolutionized technology, science, and almost every aspect of life across numerous civilizations in the Milky Way galaxy, and even beyond. The Mass Effect. This effect alters the state of an object's, well, mass, as the name implies. All civilizations of Mass Effect rely on this quirk of dark energy, from faster-than-light travel to the seeming superpowers of biotics, and even a toothbrush. Hello, Rick here, and this video continues the lore of the Mass Effect series as we delve into its organizations, technology, and history. The discovery of the Mass Effect for humanity and the Systems Alliance came when they unearthed the Prothean ruins on Mars. Among the archives of schematics and recorded knowledge of this long-gone civilization was a small sample of previously unknown element. This element seemed to have an atomic weight of 0 and therefore was termed Element 0, or ESO for short. This seemed to be different from the theoretical neutronium that is hypothesized to be comprised entirely of neutrons only, as like neutronium, Element 0 has an atomic weight of 0, but it also exhibits a unique property. It could generate dark energy. This dark energy had a strange relation to gravitational forces and even the mass of an object. Specifically, when a positive electrical current was run through the ESO, the resulting dark energy field it created increased the mass of an object within its range. Running a negative current through it decreased the mass with the same scale. This was termed the Mass Effect. Element 0 is produced naturally in very small quantities when matter interacts with a supernova. The chances of its production are slim, and it often requires an object of almost planetary scale to capture or create it. For this reason, good places to find ESO are systems with depleted stars in them, neutron stars and pulsars and the like. Mining the stellar debris in this system often yields a decent amount of this rare commodity, but fortunately, not a lot is required to generate Mass Effect fields. Soon, and with the aid of the Prothean archives, researchers began to find practical uses for the Mass Effect, first and foremost being FTL travel. A ship is able to generate a Mass Effect field from its drive core, effectively a large ESO reactor, which then reduces the mass of the vessel and its contents enough so that it circumvents the massive energy requirements for relativistic travel. Thrust is applied and off you fly. This also avoids the time dilation that would be created from travelling near the speed of light, the final outcome being a very convenient way to traverse the galaxy without distorting space or time for the occupants of a vessel. Light years can be traversed in a matter of hours. This is taken to the extreme with the mass relays. These systems are colossal 9-mile long Element 0 fueled stations that are as ancient as the Protheans, if not older. Well, they are definitely older and part of the galactic web of abandoned artifacts that litter inhabited space. These relays are made of the same material as the Citadel space station, meaning that they resist scans and are indestructible to most attempts to enter them. What we do know is that upon receiving a signal for activation and the mass calculation of the ship, they reach out to a neighbouring relay, light years away, and the two link to form a corridor of Mass Effect fields that reduce mass to a near infinitesimal amount. Being accelerated through one of these corridors is far faster than even the strongest drive core can achieve, and is how inter-system travel is achieved in moments. The exact science behind these constructs is mostly speculation based on observed effects due to their hardy nature and the fact that risking one damage would effectively cut off a system from the greater galaxy. Any inhabitants of a system without a relay would have to resort to conventional FTL travel, which would still take hundreds of years to journey beyond their systems, so no one wants to risk dissecting one in case they break it. Element 0 also has an effect on the nervous system of those exposed to it. The most well-known example is the production of biotics. Again, we'll use humanity's experience with the phenomena as the example. Around 2150, as humanity was getting to grips with its newfound spacefaring age, there were several ship accidents that detonated drive cores over populated planets. The resulting Element 0 dust was dispersed over these populace, and none showed any ill effects. For a while afterwards, it was thought to be the end of the story, until it was discovered that some in utero fetuses had their nervous systems affected, causing the growths of nodes. Some of these infants died, and many had no apparent effects, while others suffered from related conditions throughout their life. Upon encountering the greater galactic community, humanity learned of the existence of biotics, and that they were formed from element zero exposure, and so research began on these affected individuals. After much trial and error, it was confirmed that some of these affected individuals, around 1 in 10, could generate and manipulate dark matter in a similar fashion to element zero itself. Through the creation of implants grafted to the nervous system, they could even control this ability, though it required a great deal of training and burned a lot of energy. These people, with much training, could accomplish a myriad of feats that were supernatural. The Biotic Acclimation and Temperance Training was an Alliance Cognitive Industries training program for just this purpose. Using the manipulation of Mass Effect fields, they effectively became telekinetic. They could levitate things with their powers, throw objects around, and even generate singularities. One of the more advanced abilities had them create barriers of mass that could slow, deflect, or halt projectiles passing through. Their gravity-defying abilities quickly saw military use, and the biotic research continued at a rapid pace, improving upon the implants and training required to produce ever more powerful biotics and new abilities that are constantly being innovated. In other military applications, the firearms industry was overhauled too. Mankind soon coupled the use of magnetically accelerated projectiles with the Mass Effect fields. Most standard firearms work in the same fashion, as a small sliver of material, microns thick, is shaved off an ammunition block and then propelled through the accelerator, while Mass Effect fields reduce its mass so that it flies at lethal speeds. This effectively negates the need for ammunition, as a single block can last for thousands of rounds, the only limiting factor being that this system is prone to overheating with rapid use. This same principle is applied to ship combat too, with mass accelerators being the primary means to attack on many vessels. Another use for Mass Effect fields came with the creation of kinetic barriers. These are effectively shields that are projected from the Mass Effect emitters around a person or ship. These fields are calibrated in such a way that they, like a biotics barrier, deflect incoming projectiles. The faster an object strikes them, the more pronounced the effect, so slow-moving objects are generally unaffected. This is why you can still interact with everyday objects with the kinetic barriers raised. A human is incapable of moving fast enough to trigger them. Most of these technologies were designed based on the blueprints and records left on Mars by the Protheans, and humanity is still honestly struggling to understand the principles behind most of them. Even the other species of the galaxy all evolved along similar lines, discovering Prothean relics, experimenting, reverse engineering and toying with their findings, mimicking the creations of beings whose understanding of physics far outstripped our own. Of course, by the ending of the first game, we've learned that the Protheans too were simply recreating the relics of civilizations before them, and that the origin of the Mass Effect can be traced back to the Reapers in a cycle of development and extinction. However, it seems that even in a galaxy untouched by this ancient menace, like Andromeda, there are species who have discovered Element Zero and created their own versions of the Mass Effect based on technologies to explore. Although without the mass relay network, interstellar travel is more inaccurate and slower paced. The Kett, for example, actually use a form of warp drive by bending space-time using Mass Effect fields. This is faster than conventional FTL speeds, but a far cry from the power of the relays. So there we have it. Mass Effect fields are the creation of the Element Zero, and they are the Mass Effect universe's big suspension of disbelief. Much of the technology created for this mythos could theoretically work if you accept the existence of this mass-changing super-element, and that, to me, is a strong display of consistency in a science fiction universe. Thanks for listening to this lore video on Mass Effect. There's so much this galaxy has to explore, and I look forward to sifting through it to find some interesting topics. So until the next video, I've been Rick, and I'll see you out there. Goodbye.